So, welcome. So you like the you just mentioned you like the Phantom more than you like the Adele.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Adele's just like easy brain dead.
Mm-hmm.
The Phantom, I've always enjoyed since it was released. So
Mm-hmm.
when I started playing again, I named another Phantom.
And you got to 500. Sorry, the 200. You like the fifth job?
I haven't really like done much fifth job wise. Like I don't know like how the V Matrix works too much.
Okay. Yeah, because the fifth job is such a big part of the game, right? It's such a big influence in what you do. It's really an important thing that the fifth job matches, but of course, as you're a Phantom, you might be training still with the earlier skills that you use earlier on in the game. So if that's something that you enjoy, you kind of, classes within Phantom, you kind of mix and match with how you use the V Matrix depending on which maps you want to train in and which skills are useful to train in those maps. There's a general meta, of course, where people are like, okay, this skill is really good in this map, this one in this map, and so on and so forth. And then when you're bossing, you're mainly just stealing buffs, right, and using your own skills when you're bossing, and then using your own little hurricane skills and tapping all your fifths whenever you have them for big bursty damage and for iframes that you get almost with everything. So the survivability is usually pretty good. But I guess you're just getting used to the fifth job and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Have you tried out the skills a little bit, see what they do and how they work?
So I've tried a few of them, like Luck of the Draw,
Mm-hmm.
just like throwing cards, I think.
Yeah, a bunch of them, right?
Spark. Yeah, tons of cards being thrown. Phantom Spark, I didn't really understand how it worked.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much text in it that I just
like a wall of text, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't quite understand how that one works.
Mm-hmm.
Ace in the Hole, I think that one was pretty simple. Just throw out a card that'll bounce.
Yeah. Pretty short cooldown,
Yeah.
I think, right? So you can have multiple of them going on at the same time sometimes.
Oh yeah, 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And Rift Break. I don't think I understood how this one works either.
So my understanding is that so Luck of the Draw is basically you just hold it down, does a bunch of damage, and then at the end you roll a card that gives you a buff, and as you're rolling that also turns into an iframe. And then you get a buff depending on that card for a bit. That's how I understand that skill. The other one is, you just throw out the Joker card. I think it goes up to 2 even at higher level, and they just bounce around, and you just use them whenever you can. It's good for overall DPS and bossing and for mobbing. Extra map clear, and it's pretty hard, pretty fast, so it's a easy extra killing around the map. The Rift Break, that's the last one, right? This one on the right side? The one with the... kind of like the mask-looking guy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the way I understand it is that you have like 2 main activations for it. I think one is with the down arrow key and one is without. And I believe if you use it with the down arrow key, you don't move and you stay in the same position. So you basically just create a bunch of explosions and a bunch of damage around you. So if you're mobbing, if you're bossing, you typically use that one just to, do a bunch of damage with it in the same place. And I believe if you don't use the arrow key, it just teleports you randomly around the map and like kills everything that you're around. Is how
That's what happened while I was bossing.
Yeah, maybe you didn't use the arrow key and you got teleported around.
Yeah. I was like, wait, why am I over here now?
Yeah, so that's a little bit a higher risk, right? Mm-hmm. And then the other one, what is that one called again?
Which one?
The one with the blue arrow. Yeah, like the third one from the left, I guess.
Phantom Spark?
That as I understand it, you build up debuffs on a target. So that one's basically mainly for bossing. You build up debuffs on a target, and then you can activate it. Creates like a big explosion. It teleports you behind him, and I think it also gives you a short iframe. So it's mainly bossing a way to both reposition and also to do a decent amount of damage.
Okay.
When it comes to boost nodes in the beginning, it's all about stealing the right skills, right? There's a bunch of skills in the game that make you a lot stronger. You're kind of forced to take these because, of course, the class is based around what if you take all of these strengthening skills, how strong can you get then? That's what you get balanced around. So if you don't take that, you're losing a lot of power. So it kind of even though on one end you do have the freedom to take what you want, on the other hand, if you do that, there's usually a huge penalty you pay for with not being able to optimize and be the strongest you can be. So there's so yeah.
So for example, on the try node that I have, it's impeccable memory 1, 3, and 4. It's just final damage. So is that gonna help while I'm using a buff?
Yes and no. That's mainly if you're using attacking skills. So when you're mobbing, then you're boosting those, and then when you're bossing, you're going to be boosting the other ones. So specifically the the Mileki and the Tempest, right? And then when you're mobbing, typically you go for those the attacking nodes. If you're using a buffing node, that doesn't really help, because even you don't increase the level of the node or anything of the skill. You increase the final damage of the regular percentage that's on there. So for Phantom, that works a little bit different than for some other class. Well, it works in a similar way, but how you use the V matrix to optimize for yourself is going to be different. So I guess before we get too deep into all of that, do you have any specific plans like for the game? Do you just play what's fun for you? You're just like slowly trying to understand more and more and just trying to challenge yourself more with the dailies?
Yeah, at this point I'm like just trying to understand more of the game, trying to get into some higher tier bosses. I'd like to eventually get to CRA at least. And then see where it goes from there.
Yeah, like replace your temporary CRA gear with real stuff. And then slowly work from there. Is there anyone else that joined like around the same time in the guild, or that is doing like a similar thing? It's also pretty new that you know of, or no?
Oh, that I know of, that I know.
Well,
I haven't really
yeah.
Actually like been on any of my higher level characters. I've just been leveling up all my legion.
I see. Yeah. Do you find it easy to find a balance between those things, or?
Well, I mean, at this point it's just legion leveling, but just to like get to a point where the legion and finding skills can help me progress further. But yeah, I want to start doing more content to hopefully get this guy to 220 before the event ends.
Yeah, that's pretty soon, right? Do you have access to totems and that kind of stuff?
I don't think like I haven't been picking up Maple points or anything like that, so I don't think so.
With the reward points, right? Are you doing okay with that?
Like I've forgotten to pick up the reward points after I kill the bosses, so.
Yeah,
So
that'll be because if you're trying to give yourself room to grow, it's good to do the pre-work so that you can, when you do feel like putting in the work, that you have available all of the available resources so that you can go hard at that moment, right? One of the things with Maple is that if you at the very moment where you're like, okay, now I want to grind, if then you first have to grab everything, right? First you have to like wait for Legion coins so you can buy the buff, wait for reward points so you can even buy a totem, get nodes from a shop first so you can even level up your skills. Then by the time you have all that stuff, your day's over, or your mood to play is probably past, right? So you kind of want to do a little bit of steps in a bunch of different directions to kind of put yourself in the opportunity to be able to more optimize, and optimize not in the like super try hard, but there's a level of value that you can get out of your time that definitely gets increased as you do the right things, quote unquote. So when it comes to making reward points and stuff, it's definitely thank you, Kyle. And I don't know how familiar you are with the resources that I have on the channel, but there's a lot of videos and files for all of these things separately to kind of look into. Because when it comes to reward points, yeah, some of it is bossing. You can also do Maple M on the side. And there's Monster Collection as well. These three things together will give you a lot. They recently increased how much you get from the daily and the weekly bosses, so that's going to be a really big part. And if you pick those up properly, Not like you were doing. But then you will get a lot of reward points, and you will be able to afford quite a lot of totems. And then the totems in the reward shop, they reset every month, right? So there's only like 2 more days in the current rotation, and then they reset again. So anything you can buy in the next 2 days, I would just buy that. And spend all your reward points on that, so that, because in like 2 days it resets anyway, so the stock gets refreshed.
I'll hop on and see if I actually get points right now.
Yeah, so check !RP. Like, that video will tell you more about like setting up your monster collection, and then you can do that slowly over time. But as long as, if you don't know what to do whatsoever on a day, and you don't feel like hard grinding something out, but you still want to play the game, you could do something like that, where it's kind of like, it's very, you know, low stress, no real pressure, nothing like that. But that value will translate to helping your account down the road, so you will get, you know, you'll get value out of that later.
Okay.
And yeah, because if you get access to more of the totems, you'll just get way more value out of your time when you're training, right? You can increase the spawn, and the spawn comes back faster, so you'll get more monsters to hit. And, you know, in the case of some skills, like when you throw that Joker card around, if there's more monsters to hit, then that means it can bounce around more and actually hit more targets. But if you kill all the monsters and there's nothing to bounce off of, it kind of just sits there and does nothing, right? So it's you can imagine, you know, if you're doing your tornado, you know, if it takes a while for the monsters to spawn, or there's not that many monsters, then your tornado isn't very effective. But if everything keeps spawning into your tornado, or into the Tempest, I should say, then that skill in itself starts doing way more damage.
I actually have enough for, I think, 1 totem.
Yeah, so they last for 2 hours. You know how they work?
I think I understand. Like, it's like vacation, but
yeah, how you go, like, if you buy a totem, how you go from like having the totem to, because it starts immediately with a 2-hour timer as soon as you buy it, right?
Oh.
Like, well, no, not as soon as you buy it, but like you buy like a coupon for the item, right? And then as soon as you turn the coupon into the item, then the time starts ticking. So then
you can like change maps and.
Yeah, you can change maps and everything, yeah, but you kind of want to know before, like, if you have the coupon in your inventory, like, you want to make sure that you have all the other preparations done, like you have a good map, you've got all your other buffs that you want, and you, like, you know, you've got your gamer pee bottle next to you, you know, so you can go 2 hours without needing to run, so that you know, like, okay, everything is good, I'm ready for 2 hours, boom. Double click the totem, equip it, and then make sure the skill is on a button that you can easily reach, because you want to refresh it like every 90 seconds or something, right? A little bit less than every 2 minutes. Sometimes I turn the visibility of the skills up a little bit. I don't know what you usually play on, just to make sure you can see the totem, because then sometimes you can see it disappear. But once you've trained a little bit, you'll know immediately when it's gone, because the map is suddenly empty and it takes forever for monsters to spawn. You're like, oh, totem probably expired. You'll get like not even a 6th sense, but you'll just immediately notice that. And well, the downside is once you get used to totem, it's very hard to do anything off totem, so beware of that as well, right? A lot of it is also expectation management based on what kind of rates are you expecting, and what kind of returns for your time invested are you expecting. And as that goes up, it can become harder and harder to settle for less than that. So, you know, have that also be part of your of how you're looking at everything, I guess. Because but those are going to be instrumental to get from 200 to 220, because like 200 to 205 can be a little bit rough, especially in the beginning on a new character and a relatively new account. Once you're at 205 and you can go to Reverse City, those maps are really good. High EXP, high burn, easy to clear maps, and with totems those are really, really great. Up to 210, and then 210 to 215 is like a little bit tougher again, because there's no like perfect maps to do at that time. There's a few maps in Choo Choo that are good, and some people stay in Reverse City up to 215, and then at 215 you can go to Yum Yum Island, and then that's a great area where you can pretty much take any map. All the maps have a lot of monsters, a lot of spawn, a lot of burn, and because people who are there are just not there very long, so that those areas are like flyover states basically. So there's not that many other people there to compete with, so that means that if you're at that level, you can blow through it as well. There's definitely not a bottleneck. It's like the opposite of a bottleneck. I don't know. So yeah, then if you get to 215 to 220 should be smooth sailing, but you'll definitely need some totems. And if you're going to do the whole thing without totems, it's still doable, but I mean the amount of hours you're going to have to put in is just going to be significantly more. So I guess for short term, we'll kind of focus on what can we do to get you the better rates within the hours that you have, right? Because it is, what is it, like 11 more days or something, right? So that does mean that you need to get an average of like 2 levels a day, right?
Yeah.
And some of those will be easy, but some of those will be harder. And I don't know, do you have any kind of like level up potions at all left?
I don't think so. I think I used...
I guess that really big one maybe, right? From the one that goes up to 250 or something? I don't know if...
No, I don't have any of those.
If you got enough bean... Well, like in the UI, if you have your beans, then the total amount, then you can get it from the event reward.
Oh, I haven't done that event at all.
Oh, okay. You haven't been doing the beans and stuff from the shop?
No, like I said, I've just been focusing on the Legion.
I see, okay. Yeah, because you have to be over level 100, right, before it, or like 105 or something like that, before it even starts counting.
I think it's 70 or 60. I think it's 60.
The Peplock Homes thing maybe, but the big event, like the bean event, is like I think 105 or something like that before you can even start working on that. So if you're doing the lower level Legion stuff, it doesn't even come into play there.
Oh yeah.
Oh, 100. Someone says 100 for the event. Yeah. Yeah. So the other thing that we probably want to get you is as many experience coupons as possible, right? To squeeze out those levels. So there's the Peplock Homes stuff right now. Have you been doing that? Did you get that box?
No.
So for day 1, there is a box that gives you access. I think it's 2 15-minute coupons. Is it every day? It's a decent amount, and 2x coupons in the beginning of the game are pretty rare to come across. So you'll mostly be looking for event shops, because all the other resources are going to be too expensive, right? Legion shop goes usually at the expense of slowing down ranking up your Legion. Dojo, you're probably not ranking high enough to be able to purchase those. Those are usually the main sources, and the other ones are Saturday and Sunday Monster Park boxes. So that's probably what you're going to rely on the most is events and Saturday, Sunday Monster Park boxes.
Yeah, I bought some from the Legion shop, and now I'm kind of regretting that.
Yeah, it slows down your growth of your Legion board, right?
Yeah.
And if your Legion isn't growing as fast as you want, then you're gonna like damage. And then if you're not killing fast enough, that's also hurting your EXP. And it's difficult in the beginning to see like, is it gonna be worth more to get an EXP coupon or to kill faster and then get more experience that way? And it kind of comes down to the links grid, right, where you kind of look at the general value of characters for your account when it comes to Legion and buff and stuff, because it's like EXP is up there, but then crit and crit damage is like right after that, because you can buff all the EXP you want per kill, but if you don't get the kills fast enough, then it's not really efficient to go about it. And increasing the EXP per kill too much, you got to get those kills up first, right? I mean, you want to do a combination of the two, so that's why it's set up in the way that it is. Because you're probably not one-shotting everything around your level, I imagine, right?
With my Phantom, no.
But we want to get to that point, or, not one-shotting, but like, when people say one-shotting, what they mean is, roughly killing the monsters before the respawn timer, right? If you kill them in 1 hit or in 300 hits, like, doesn't really matter as long as you can kill them before the respawn cycle is, then you're full map clearing and then you're optimizing. And then within that optimizing, we want to try to optimize the rates. So first that's EXP wise, and then later that becomes like meso and drop rate and that kind of stuff, so that you don't lose progression speed when you're on a totem, that you can still kill all the monsters just as fast as otherwise. So that means we usually over upgrade some pieces to pick up the slack for the other pieces. And then those other pieces, the accessories, usually get upgraded with meso-obtain and drop rate and stuff to increase the amount of money you make, so that when the events come around, you can splurge hardcore and start making big upgrades and big gains without... and then that's mostly for bossing or to future-proof for newer areas that require way more of you.
Okay.
So that's kind of like the whole, I don't know, the skeleton of what we can get into. I think it's probably good. Does this all sound good to you?
Yeah.
Did you have any, did you have like a list of questions of like topics you wanted to go through, or I don't know how you imagine this?
Yeah, I definitely wanted to learn more about the V matrix and
Mm-hmm.
how to get matrix points, level up my nodes, and get more nodes and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, because yeah, I have like zero understanding on that side.
Okay, so we'll
Um,
just start the matrix from scratch. Well, we talked about it a little bit, but we'll kind of start from scratch. So for V matrix, I have the V matrix command that basically looks at what are the boost nodes to get for all of the individual classes, right? Because it's pretty specific. So if you look at the Phantom ones, so it says the trio 1 that's most important is to get the Mille Aiguilles, and then Tempest and Carte Noire, which is bossing, but also just really good for mobbing in the beginning. You know, just use your main skills. And this kind of takes pressure off of needing. Oh, there's a whole big note in here. Because Phantom is one of the ones that's a little bit more complicated, right? Because you can take skills from other classes. So it says here, for farming, 4th job stolen skills are strong enough to one hit without boost nodes a lot of the time. Same with Carte Rose. That's the bigger AoE. I don't know if it's a hyper skill, right? That, like,
I think it's a hyper.
Yeah. You don't need more damage after you can one-shot. Once you get over the threshold to one-hit mobs with Bazooka, Frozen Orb, and Showdown, you're looking more at impeccable 2 nodes for Pathfinder skills, or impeccable 3 nodes for the Arrow Blaster to increase your efficiency on the map. Arrow Blaster is really, really late. I don't know if you know that skill.
Yeah, I think I stole it already.
Yeah, but that one is really weak, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, different maps definitely lend themselves for it. Any kind of summon you can put down that continuously kills while you're doing other stuff is great for your rates, because your map clearing capability just gets upscaled on a whole other level. And the further you go, the more you can just plop down summons that take care of killing for you. That's amazing. But you'll need to be pretty strong, even if you're going to put the boost nodes onto that skill before that one starts killing, because holy shit, is it weak early on. So that also means you don't rely on it too much early, right? In the beginning, you're just stealing the skills from other classes that give you a lot of final damage, like, Cross Surge and Final Cut, right? Those are the big ones.
Yeah, I have those 2 and Rage.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Rage, yeah.
that much, but
some people do Holy Symbol in the beginning, right? So you don't need to rely on decent Holy Symbol too much. Decent Sharp Eyes for some people to get your critical rate up. So it might be...
to 200, I used Holy Symbol instead of Cross Surge.
Oh yeah, because those 2 pick up the same slot, yeah. Yeah, so from what I read here, it does seem that you'll mostly try to use Fortune. This is kind of like written in mind with being decently funded on the other end, but I think what this means is that you probably won't have to rely too much on the boost nodes early on. You probably just want to make this one, the Mille Aiguilles, Tempest, Carte Noire, have those boosted so that you can boss properly and that you can also rely on them if needed for mobbing. But it seems that the 4th job skills themselves usually have high percentages by themselves and will do good damage. But as long as the other funding comes into place, and that means your arcane symbols, right? Those are going to be very important. And then, in general, upgrade of equips and your legion growth, then you shouldn't need too much in terms of boost nodes early on, which means you can go a little bit higher on skill nodes. I wouldn't necessarily forge a lot of skill nodes to level them up, but I would make sure to just equip more skill nodes. So decent skills on top of your regular skills. And then when you're bossing, you can maybe switch out some decent skills for an extra burst skill. But you're mostly going to be investing in mobbing early on, right? Definitely, because we want to get that 220 early on. So I think boost node wise, you don't have to start, worrying too much in leveling. Do you know about the basis of the levels of the nodes and how far they can go and how to level and everything?
I don't know how to level. I think they can get up to level 30.
Yeah, so the node themselves can go up to 25, but the slots can also be leveled. So every time you level now past 200, you'll get one node, what is it called, a node point? Matrix point, I think. And those matrix points will allow you to level up one of the slots in the grid. And then the node that is equipped in that slot will get the amount of levels of the level of the grid, basically. It's pretty straightforward. So the slot themselves can go up to 5, and then the node can go up to 25. So a level 25 node in the level 5 slot can go up to 30, yeah. So skill nodes and boost nodes can go up to 30. Boost nodes will level faster, but a certain skill can be boosted up to 60 levels, which means that when we talk about a tri-node, right, like a boost node with 3 skills that you want to boost, ideally in a perfect configuration for your class, you want 2 of those with different order of skills, because the top skill is important. You can't equip like 2 Mille Aiguilles boost nodes. Boost nodes, for example, like one has to be a Tempest or a Carte Noire with the same 3 skills in different orders, and then have them both equipped at the same time. They can go up to level 25 in a level 5 slot, totally up to 60. In the beginning, some people can even divide them over more slots, right? You can imagine if you get just 4 level 3 skills, they all have your important skill, but they're all in a level 5 slot. Then you get 3 plus 5, 8 times 4, 32. Right? You can get a lot of levels for free like that, but you're sacrificing your skill nodes. Some classes don't really rely on their skill nodes. You'll probably rely on it more comparatively. So you're mostly just going to be cycling through your skill nodes. So make sure that all of the skill nodes with cooldown, they're all visible in the bottom right in your little key, your hotkey area, right? And that way you'll always be able to see when they're off cooldown and then slam them and get those big AoEs around the map and destroy everything. But definitely play around with it a little bit, right? Find which skills are useful for you to use. Maybe you come into a map and you're like, okay, one of my skill nodes isn't even useful at all. So maybe you can switch it up with decent holy symbol, or maybe you can, get even decent combat orders or decent sharp eyes in there, right? Just to boost your base stats. Because that's another thing, like the crit rate is going to be important. But it seems that the Matrix is not going to be super duper immediately important. In the sense that you need to go like super hard on the boost nodes. But definitely look at these skills here to have in your mind like which skills am I actually looking for. And it seems that so basically if you go further into the game, it seems that what you are mobbing, people will be using trio 1 and 2A basically. And if you're bossing, people will be using trio 1 and 2B. So everyone has to have 2 of them per set, right? So you'll basically, no matter how far you go into the game, it seems that Phantom always wants to use 4 slots for boost nodes. But a very low level boost node, even though it boosts with final damage of your existing skills, often is not worth switching out an entire skill node for, especially not your core skill nodes, right? Those are typically very, very good. Excuse me, especially if they have pretty short cooldowns and, have kill potential, really high kill potentials, even at level 1. So that's kind of how you gauge what the level of a slot is, and then every 5 levels, you'll unlock a slot automatically, and you can equip another node, whether it's a boost node or a skill node.
Okay.
Yeah, you can pay ahead if you want to, but, the earlier slots are decently affordable, but you're also going to be leveling pretty quickly. So I usually, try to stay within my lane, stay within the slots I have available, and then just use that as an extra motivator to level. Because I found that if I buy the slots early, it kind of demotivates me to level, and it makes me more just want to sit in place and just do a little bit of bosses here and there. But it's possible that you go to a point where you're like, okay, I don't really feel like leveling anymore. I just want to boss. And there's one skill that I really want to use when I'm bossing, so I'm just going to buy 1 more slot to have an easier time bossing. That's perfectly fine.
Okay.
So yeah, you basically get to select what your 5th job looks like, right? All the other 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, you get the skills, you put them on a key, you're done. But for 5th, you get to choose, like, are you going to mob, or are you going to boss, which boss are you going to do? And then you get to decide which skills do I want to have access to. Do I need a bind? Do I not need a bind, right? Of course, you need to unlock them all first. But you get more freedom, but with more freedom comes more responsibility. In that sense, there's more opportunity for you to lose certain value if you don't optimize your V matrix. In the beginning, there's not much room, right? So you just pick the best things you have and you move on. But as you get more slots, it becomes more and more important to pick the right boost nodes. But you'll get a better feel for that. You'll feel like, okay, I want to be able to use this skill. Oh, then I want to have it boosted. And you want to be like, oh, in this boss, I don't use this skill at all. It doesn't make any sense. So you just take it off, and then, that's where a lot of the value in your account will come from, is which skills do you enable for which situation.
Okay.
So that kind of make sense for the matrix. I know it's a lot. For like more specific details, I'm sure you've seen some of the progression sessions, right? Go into it sometimes a little bit more. There's also a little question mark in the Matrix UI. If you click that, there's also some answers there for some more I don't know, I guess like hands-on questions.
Okay. Yeah. The only other question I had was like how to like get nodes. Or...
Yeah, they're quite rare. Usually, I would say so. There's the Vanishing Journey dailies, right, or weekly, I guess. Doing at least your Vanishing Journey regular dailies twice in a week. That will give you 3 free nodes. It's a little, it's not that much, but it's something, and it will add up over time. But that is connected to doing the symbol dailies every day, which I think is a very important daily to do. And then the other thing is, event stores have them sometimes. Anything you can get in event stores, try to get as many node stones from that as possible. So if you haven't been doing the bean stuff yet, definitely enable it on the Phantom and start getting the beans to be able to get as many node stones as you can. Because the only other way, basically, is to kill monsters and to get them from drops. And that's going to be low in the beginning because you're not going to be killing fast and you're not going to have a lot of drop rate. So that's, a slow build up.
Okay, yeah. Oh, actually.
Well, you're gonna get boosts as well from the Terra Burn event, right? You're gonna get like big chunks of them. When you reach hopefully. 200, well, yeah, 200, 205, and 210, I think you get extra. That should be quite a lot.
Yeah, it did help a bunch when I hit 200. A bunch of extra nodes.
Did you already have some on your account, or was it pretty... No, okay. Pretty new, okay. There's still going to be like stuff that comes up, specific questions. I don't want to spend like an hour on the V-Matrix. There's probably like... We could probably spend another hour on like all of the exceptions and all of the different situations you can get in. But definitely look at the V-Matrix command, and just if you're in doubt, ask in the chat, or you could also maybe join the Phantom Discord, where they'll probably have more specific Phantom answers. Yeah, everything will have its own benefit, upside and downside. People who know a lot about a class can also get pretty intense about the class, and maybe, and people who know more general information can maybe be more like carefree with the information, but it might not specifically be as pinpointed as it. So if it's like a general system question, you can always ask in the chat. If it's really like, how does a Phantom do this? Or like you're trying a certain boss and you just don't know how to do it at all as a Phantom, or where to train specifically as a Phantom once you get to a much higher level and it becomes more specific, because you have so many skills in your arsenal that you can steal from other characters. At that point, asking a specific Phantom Discord the question will probably be more useful, I would say.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
They'll have that experience to take from. Okay. Yeah, I guess you don't know everything about the V-Matrix now, but like the general trajectory, how to get the nodes and where to focus, do you feel confident for that?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have any other systems that you wanted to talk about a little bit?
Also the inner ability. So like I know how to like re-roll the stats. Like just click the reset button, but like how do I get like from rare to epic or whatever? Yeah,
so with every reroll, there's a chance to tier up. They removed the chance to tier down, so that's no longer a thing you have to worry about too much, because that was an extra thing that you had to worry about. There is still one more round of changes coming from Korea that is not live in GMS yet, that has to do with increasing the chance of epic lines when the inner ability is unique, and unique lines when the inner ability is epic and unique lines when the inner ability is legendary. In your stage of the game, it's probably not super important because you're mainly just looking for getting a good top line, and the top line is always the same rarity as the inner ability itself. So if it goes to epic, the top line is always epic. If it goes to unique, the top line is always unique, etc. So early on, that's not as big of a deal, but when it comes to later and trying to optimize your inner ability, it can get very, very expensive. So waiting for that change definitely will help min-maxing your inner ability. And it's basically...
Right now it should be fine to just reset until I get it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Some people will just click, re-roll, and try to get to unique. I don't know if there's an Innerability 50% off event soon. That's usually something to look out for because
No.
it's just half off. To get up to epic or maybe up to unique, it doesn't really matter that much. But if you're trying to go into legendary and try and do some rolls in legendary, the honor experience, you get a lot of it in the beginning, and you kind of get like a fake sense of security when you're like, oh, I have so much. But the speed with which you will gain honor experience after the point where you get like 200,000 is very, very slow. Um, it's kind of like opening the reboot box and getting a lot of mezzo and getting like an expense pattern of like, oh, I can just buy all of this, buy all of this. But then, once you are in charge of making your own money outside of the reboot box, you can be like, ooh, maybe I should have not, bought all these cubes or all these potential scrolls. So you want to be careful not to splurge too hard. We only have 2 sunny Sundays left. Is the coming one an Innerability one? There's a Star Force one. Oh no, there's an 50 symbols this weekend. Ooh, that's gonna be nice for you. You might want to hold on to those until you can get to 220 to level up the Lacaline one immediately. Because usually Vanishing Journey and Choo-Choo level pretty quickly because you can get a lot of symbols per day. So if you get a lot of symbols, and they're about to expire, just use it on whatever area you can use them on. But the general order is like Asphera, then Morass, and then Lacaline is like the typically the priority you want to use the symbols on because you just get to those areas so late that you want them to catch up to the other ones. Plus the daily amount of symbols you can get is so low that it's always going to be behind, so you want them to catch up basically.
I think I also need an explanation on those.
February 6th is Inner. Oh, February 6th is going to be Innerability 50% off at the same time as 30% off Star Force. Okay, yeah, so not tomorrow, but 1 week after tomorrow, February 6th, there's going to be an Innerability reroll event. So you could use that to get to Legendary and try to roll for something nice. As a Phantom, you're not beholden to the attack speed +1. That's kind of like an important one, right? So that you get highest attack speed, you can jump around, be more mobile, get a good sense of the rhythm of your character. But in the beginning, you're mainly going to be using Hurricane skills. So, attack speed doesn't affect those. So you're kind of free in that sense that you can go for Mezzo Obtain and that kind of stuff. And you don't have to worry about the attack speed. But if you get Mezzo Obtain, you're just improving your growth speed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just like for all the other ones, for Innerability, I also have a command, basically one with like how do you turn honor into a good Innerability, basically. How do you do that in an efficient way? So that's linked to here and linked to here as well. And then there's also a link for all of the possible outcomes, which could be helpful, just to know what am I even, if I roll something, is it even good or bad? Like what tier is it? Is it high within the tier? Is it bad within the tier? You can see the tiers more clearly now because they're colored specifically. But there's variance within the tiers. That's why sometimes you'll also hear people talk about circulators, which you can buy in the cash shop. Those don't have variance. So if you roll any line on any tier, it always gives you the biggest number it can possibly give you within that tier. So those are usually the ones you use later on to min-max your Innerability when you're trying to get a really, really good line, a unique line on the second or third line. And then you lock that one in once you hit what you want, and you re-roll the top line. Because the top line is the strongest line by itself, but if you go that far into the game, it's the combination of a good unique line and the legendary line that's really going to take you into the late game and the end game. And then the third line is usually you just take whatever you can get because beggars can be choosers at that point. The variance is too big, so anything you can get that even remotely helps you out is going to be golden. So it seems that Phantom, yeah. So I think that attack buff duration is something that they want mainly for the final cut, right? So that you can keep that up all the time and maybe have a little bit of later for bossing, if the buff duration is so long that you can even hold the final cut maybe a little bit longer to use it as an iframe itself, which gives you more survivability in the boss fights. I think I don't know if the 20 boss, that might be an old one. Yeah, Luna's saying cooldown skip. This is something that's constantly changing, and I imagine with the reboot, well, not reboot, but like the general rework of the beginners, right? Not beginners, sorry, the explorers in KMS. In 6 months, it's possible that because the kit changes and the amount of skills that you use changes and the types that you use change, it's possible that the Innerability flips over as well. So this is something that's constantly moving. Luna, is that in the Discord as well? In the that's the wrong one. In the Phantom Discord. Why do you use cooldown skip? Would you use that for final? Because would you use it for Final Cut as well, just to see if you can get more Final Cut or what? Because this is usually is it only for Final Cut? Is that worth enough? I think it might be one of those situations where they want it more after the Explorer changes. Yeah, so that's another thing. It depends on how much you're going to future-proof, right? If most of the changes come through in 6 months from the Explorer changes, Phantom within itself didn't change very much at all, right? You just got an up jump extra, and that's pretty much it. But since you steal skills from Explorers, and all of the Explorers change, Phantom might change the most out of all the classes. So once you get the ability to steal all those skills and the new like the new Buccaneer skills, with which the Buccaneer is pretty much a completely new class now, so that might completely change the meta in which skills you steal and what you do. I imagine buff duration is still a thing. I think Phantom stolen skills get more cooldown than the original skill. I see. I don't think you would ever get 20% cooldown skip for a single skill, but even if you do, it might be one of those cases where, okay, I'm strong enough, the 20 boss isn't going to make enough difference to like put a huge dent into the boss. I want to get this small chance of a cooldown skip. That's worth, to me, if I ever get to reuse a skill, that's worth more than getting the 20 boss. It might also be a decision in your playstyle where you're like, I just want the guaranteed damage all the time, or I'm okay with gambling to get a little bit extra because when I do hit it, it can give me a whole bunch of value. And again, this is something that you'll get into. But it means that since you're not really beholden to any of these lines super early, it means if your top line is like a buff duration line, that could be good for bossing, but for mobbing, it's probably not going to be as valuable. For mobbing, you're probably going to just look for 20% meso or 20% drop, right? Drop will help you with the nodes, meso will help you with more money. In the beginning, drop rate will also help you with more money, right? Because you get more chance for the bags to drop, which is also good. But that caps out a little bit earlier, so it's not as important for that part. Or like 30 weapon attack, whatever. Anything that helps you out early, but those big numbers, those big percentage numbers will be valuable. But I assume that most people go for meso or drop early just to progress faster in the beginning, and you're not super beholden to any of those other stats to progress. So you have that freedom. But if you hit one of these numbers, if you just hit 20 boss, right, and nothing else in the beginning, I would probably roll over that, because if eventually you're going to re-roll, right, you're going to do the thing with the circulators, you're going to lock the other line in place and then re-roll for the top anyway. Plus 20 boss really only does anything when you're bossing, and then when you're mobbing, it's completely useless. So I think early on you're fine with meso or drop. So, good luck on February 6th, I guess. Hopefully you get something nice. And if you get some combination and you get some uniques, you can always like ask in the chat or ask in the Phantom Discord and be like, yo, I just rolled this. Do I keep this for now? And again, that's going to be a more precise question. But there's so many different outcomes. We can't go all over all of the possible outcomes that you might want to potentially keep, right? It's a little tricky to do that. Sundays, if you check ! events, you go to the event calendar. That's for you as well. Every time there's patch notes, I keep this up to date. I add all of the new stats here, the new events, and then they all have like the direct link to the patch notes as well. So if you need any extra information, because that's another thing with the dailies, you can get lost in the sauce, right? With how many dailies there are. There's definitely some that are super important. So like anything that gives you nodes, right, for your boost nodes is super important. Anything that gives you symbols to increase your arcane power is very important. Those are like the most important ones by far. And then anything else that you want to do and you have time for, you just do that. But there's like the general list of dailies, and then I think during an event, I would always look like, okay, what is in the event shop, right? Do I need something from this? Oh, I want/need these 3 things. And then look up like, okay, how much effort is it? Do I want to do that? And you're like, okay, this is not too much effort. This seems reasonable. A lot of times you can combine. You'll get like, you have to do daily kills. Oh, cool. Well, I'm doing my symbol dailies anyway. So you just start the quest. You could do your symbol dailies. You complete both. 2 birds and 1 stone. And you get value out of it, right? That's kind of how the current event is as well. A lot of it is kill X monsters near your level. Well, okay, I'll just, it'll automatically go once you start the whole event. And then 2 or 3 or 4 of the dailies are already done just by doing your symbol dailies. And then you immediately get some beans. You can buy some items from the shop. You make progress towards the big rewards in the event, right, that are in the bar. And then you know, anytime you can do 2, 3, 4 birds with one stone, that's always good value for your time, because you know there's so much to do. So any things you can do at the same time is going to help you a lot.
Okay.
So yeah, dailies, weeklies. There's like a general advice on which things you can try around your level. But this is mostly oriented towards like which bosses and which content you can do. So I mean, you're going to be focusing on leveling mostly, right? So make sure that you get the reward points set up, you get the totems, and that you get those EXP coupons from the Yeti and the Pepe event, and from the Saturday and Sunday Monster Park boxes. You know about buying the extra coupons and running 7 times a day?
Yeah, I know you can buy the coupons with Maple points, but
yeah, in the beginning it'll be expensive to max out every single day. I would try Saturdays and Sundays. It's okay in the beginning if you don't max out the other ones. You could do it with reward points, but you can also do it with Meso in the cash shop.
Okay.
And those are unlimited, so yeah, it's like 3.5 mil. So again, that'll be a lot in the beginning, but it becomes worth it because you get more boxes, and then you get more Monster Park potions, right? The green pot, the red pot, the golden pot. You won't need the green pot as much, and the red pot is usually min-maxing for bossing, but the golden pot will be nice because that's extra EXP and stacks with all the other sources. So that's also a nice way of increasing your experience gain. Even if you're out of coupons, you can at least still have that one on.
Okay.
Cool. So how's Legion been going? You feeling good progress there?
Yeah, since when I took this picture, I don't know, like 4 days ago, I've already gone up to almost 3,500.
Okay.
So, getting great progress on that.
Yep. You're enjoying it still? You like playing a lot of different classes?
Some more than others.
Yeah, okay. Diplomatic answer. I like it, yeah.
Yeah, like, for example, I hated the Ilium. Did not like it at all. But other stuff like the Arc or the Kinesis, those were really fun. Yeah, it's really hit or miss.
Yeah, some playstyles. And also, you're still getting, it's still low levels as well. Some characters really blossom once you hit level 200 and you get those 5th job skills. Some characters just get completely saved, and others are like, that you liked before, and then the 5th job is disappointing, and you're like, oh, well, never mind then, I guess. But the good thing is, for every character that this happens, either you squeeze out 10 extra levels and you get a good level 3 link, or you get a nice bonus at level 200 for the Legion member bonus, or you get to put the piece in the grid and then you get a nice grid bonus for it. So you can always rely on some value for the character even if you don't like it that much.
Yeah, right now I'm just trying to get most characters up to 70, and then ones with like good Legion or
yeah, so you got 30 characters, so you're going the wide approach. Power in numbers. Yeah.
Definitely.
That's the easiest way to get a big Legion early on, for sure. It's an easy 3k, 4k, and then you just go back, make them all level 100, and then you slowly Zakum the ones up that you hate, and the other ones you can train a little bit if you have the time. But then it's 5k, 6k pretty quickly, and then you have the entire board available, and then you can start Tetrising.
Oh yeah, like the Evan, I forced myself to get him to 100, and I just set him on Zakum mode.
Yeah, it's a really powerful link, but it's the way that the character plays is just not for everyone. The combo system. You have luck and attack in the board, so I'm gonna assume you're familiar with you can move the stats around in the middle, right?
Yeah,
Then,
I actually figured that out after.
Yeah.
I had a really strange setup at the beginning, and I was like,
yeah.
How am I supposed to match this?
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is when they're all over the place. Yeah, and you're like, what does this arrow do? Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. And then the outside grid is stuck. So like the further you go, it's you haven't bought the upgrade for 3k yet, right?
Not yet. Then.
Yeah, so the upgrade for 3K is huge because you get to put you don't get to put one extra character in, but you get to put 5 extra characters in, and then you also expand the grid space. So when you go up to 3K, that's usually the part where you kind of just divest from the middle of the board, and you just use the middle to connect the outer side. So usually you go from critical rate to critical damage. You try to connect those with like flat pieces through the middle. I believe that's the mage pieces and the archer pieces in the beginning, right? And then you want to fill up critical rate to hit 100%. That's going to be very important. And then critical damage. That's going to make your base damage when you're mobbing and also when you're bossing, but mainly when you're mobbing, go up a lot. Because critical damage is just huge for your damage output. And in the beginning, you can't really rely on your boost node yet too much, right? You're kind of time gated there. But critical damage is just going to come in very clutch. But crit doesn't apply if you don't hit a critical rate. So you need to make sure that the critical rate is there first. So it's like a combination of where you put the pieces in the grid, which link skills you have activated, your member bonus of your characters, and then your hyper stats together. Those you want to make sure that you can get to 100% crit rate. So you already got 9 in the hyper stats, so that's working hard. And then your own link skill also gives you critical rate, right? Once you get to 210, you get an extra 5 from that as well. And it's going to be a really powerful link skill to link to other characters if you want to level them beyond and get them to 140, for example, for the rank S in the Legion board. Then getting the extra critical rate is going to make them a lot stronger as well. That'll make it so that you don't have to spend as much money on them. You won't have to dedicate as many coupons and totems and all of that to them. You can still get the levels, so you can fully dedicate all those resources to your main character.
Okay.
And you're basically funding them all through the Legion. Are you somewhat following the links command, or are you just kind of following your own way?
Yeah, I've actually got I made a spreadsheet just to...
Just for yourself? Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen this one before, the links one?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I made the spreadsheet based on that. Basically.
Okay, yeah, cool. Yeah, and if you find a character you absolutely hate, you just, put it to the side and burn it or terror burn it, whatever, when that event comes up. And then the ones you like, you just train them to your heart's content, Try to keep it fun.
Yeah, basically at this point, I've gotten all the first 30 characters up to at least 70. And then still missing.
Yep. So you're already going into the... Somewhat going into the bossing ones?
Like I'm missing all of the warriors, most of the Signet Knights, and the pirates.
Yep.
That's basically what I'm missing.
Yeah, those are more specific. Pirate-wise, you have the Shade and the Jet are pretty big, right?
No, I mean like...
Explorers are you talking... Yeah. Yes. Yeah, those are more specific later on. It's mainly if you're playing one of those characters, then you basically get a free level up on them because they stack into the same slot, right? So then then they make more sense and they're more value. Otherwise, they're just there to fill out your 40 characters or to fill out your grid or to fill out your 6K or 8K, whatever you're going for. Yeah, 8K might be a little bit far away. Yeah, no, 5.5 is already really good, right? 5.5 is also a jump from instead of 1, you get to put 5 extra characters in, and then 6 is the whole grid. I don't know if 6 isn't that necessary to fill out the whole grid, to access the whole grid, because unless you're going to 8, having the whole grid available at 6K feels kind of weird because you can't fill it at all. Like you just don't get the pieces, and the pieces you have, a lot of them are still 140, so they're not even taking up that much room. Once you go from 6 to 8, that's when you really get a lot of value out of your Legion. But if you're at 5.5K or something, from 5.5 to 6 is not that crazy. Like, yeah, you get to put things more in critical damage, but you're basically just... At that point, most people will fill out Ignore Defense, critical damage, and then go through the middle and have like one piece in like critical rate or boss damage, and like that's it. But if you compare that to being at 8K, is that you have basically 3, almost 4 of the outers filled. So you can almost fill out like all of critical rate, all of boss damage, all of ID, and all of critical damage. Like pretty close to that, especially if you have the lab pieces. Without the lab pieces, it's a little bit less. It's like 3.5 or something that you can fill. Yeah, because every piece gets 1 bigger, and then 7.5 to 8 is again 5 extra pieces. So just that one level is like 5, 4 grid pieces, like boom, 20 extra. That's half of an outer grid immediately on one level. So that's why that's ultimately a decent goal that people go to. But yeah, that's something you can work on later, of course.
Yeah. I think another question I had is, with, like, I have all the link skills now, so which ones should I actually be using for mobbing and bossing, respectively?
I see. Mamuk says it's whenever you have a multiple of 2.5, and then you go to the next one. So 2.5 to 3, 5 to 5.5, and then 7.5 to 8 is when you get 5 extra. 6 to 6.5 does not get 5. That should only give 1 extra. Which ones are you using now? Because yeah, you're getting more and more options, right? In the beginning, you just slap on everything you have, because there's not much to go with.
The ones I put in the picture were just like ones that I said, those seem good. So.
Yeah, so when it comes to the priorities of the Lynx and Legion grid, it's basically the same stats priority based on what you're doing. So if you're mobbing, I usually go by the same priority and you just go down the list. So you go like EXP, slam everything in there that you have, right? Min-max the EXP you get per monster killed. Then crit rate, put as much in to get 100% all the time uptime. So you look at your stat window, you look at how much you already have, and you just add to make sure that you get to 100%. Calculate in everything that you have 100% uptime on. So decent sharp eyes, if you have that, right, then you can go 10 lower. If your link skill is going to be leveling up to level 5, that might mean that you can switch out a link skill because maybe you go over. If you can't switch out a whole link skill, maybe you can redo your hyper stats, right, and get a little bit lower on the hyper stats. Or you could put more in your Legion board, and to compensate for that, you want to stay flexible with those numbers, but only if, you know, not every single level and every single session, but as you make a big change, try to optimize a little bit, because be like, okay, now I'm at like 114% crit rate, something can go, right? What cannot go? My own link skill. Okay, that's a guaranteed number, right? That's not a switchable number. But what is switchable? Your hyper stats, where you put your pieces in your grid, and which other link skills you have access to. That's where most of your critical rate is going to come from. So as you hover over the crit number and you see a huge number, maybe you don't want to switch all those other ones around. I'm just going to take off decent sharp eyes and put another node in. But do remember that decent sharp eyes also gives you 8% critical damage, which is good basic solid damage all the time. And that's also why it's, you know, highly advised. 10 crit rate, 8 crit damage early on. Very, very solid for almost every single class, right? And then the critical damage, you know, you see these are the numbers that you're fighting for in the member bonus and in the link skills. 8% from decent sharp eyes. It's very high. That's like 2 of these, or like, yeah, depending on what level, almost 3 of them, right? So that is a valuable slot in the matrix, especially for you, because you're not going to be super hung up on the boost nodes early on.
Yeah.
So that's something to chase there. But it's the same priority. So if you're going to be bossing, then basically it goes. This one is not important at all, right? The EXP, fuck that. You start in C, D, E, and then you basically go. If you need knockback immunity, that's still useful for a while. You're on the Phantom, I think. Do you have 100%? It says 0% here. I don't know. I think you have one skill. I feel like, don't you go to like 80% or something? When you use your regular buffs, how much, with 100% uptime, how much knockback resistance do you get to? Any Phantoms now? Does it say at 0%? So the Mihail Link skill will be pretty useful for you to get that 100%. Are you logged in right now? Are you checking? Oh, internet rebooting. Uh-oh. Boss chat? Says light flickered, internet is rebooting. Uh-oh. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. If it's the... Man, if my modem reboots, that takes like several minutes. I actually really have to pee. Can I be brutal? Can I be daring? Can I go pee real quick while his internet reboots? I'll be right back, chat.
Back.
Oh. Internet back?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Took the opportunity to go to the bathroom real quick.
No worries, perfect timing.
Yes. You're a little quiet sometimes, by the way. I already got you max boosted, but
Oh, is that better?
yes, that's way better. Yeah, just get on nice and close and cozy to the microphone. Just a little bit.
On my
yes.
actually had low gain for some reason.
Oh, okay, yeah. So what were we talking about? Matrix made sense. Link skills, right? So it's the same general order. In the beginning, you're just taking what you can get, and then as you go on, you'll start min-maxing more. So the main thing you're looking for is, have you seen the progression grid?
Yeah.
So,
I stopped them like putting into crit rate because I think I'm like over the crit rate for the progression point that I'm at.
yeah, so that one goes up to, yeah, so basically I put the number there because if you try to tank literally everything into crit rate and you add nothing of the other source, it's basically never good to go 100% one way, right? I don't know what other games you play, or if you play League of Legends or anything like that, but when you're bossing, like, okay, if you go full IED, then yes, you have full penetration, all of your damage goes through, but then you don't have any damage to push through. You go full damage, well, now you have a really big base number, but you have no penetration, the armor just stops all your damage, right? It's always about finding a healthy balance between all the things, and that's what this grid is about, is like, what is a good, healthy number to aim for, to make sure you don't not overextend it in one way and in another, but also to look, hey, if you're lower on one thing than what this grid says, then probably working on that stat is going to disproportionately help you get more efficiency out of your time for the times that you want to do that. Of course, I think fun is always more important, but if you're having enough fun and you would just want to add some efficiency and make sure that you keep growing in the right direction, then you can look at the grid and be like, okay, this is where my time can be more efficiently spent to gain. So right now you're going harder on the Legion level, and you're already almost like, you're at 3.5, you said, right? So you're going towards like the end of the mid-game stage already. That'll definitely give you some extra numbers, including crit rate. That'll just come from that. Like if you leveled the Marksman and the Night Lord, right? The member bonus there. That'll help you get to the 100. You can really never have too much crit rate in the beginning, because like I said, critical damage is really, really important, and the more you have your critical damage triggering, the better. So you can pretty freely go up to 100%, and of course, as a Phantom, you might imagine your critical rate is going to be higher than most other people because of your link skill, right? Other people have to specifically link into it. You already have it built in, so that crit is going to come a little bit more easily for you. So but we do want to get to we do want to get to 100%, like because you see, like, as soon as you hit mid, 60 to 100, right? So immediately that jump of an extra 40 is going to be big, so you can start preparing for that. Because then the critical damage becomes big. Decent Sharp Eyes is going to be huge, right? Yeah, at that. You have the Beast Tamer link. Yeah, you have a Beast Tamer and a Zero, right? Yeah, okay, you have both of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're familiar of the value for the progression for the grid. Yeah, optimizing links at this point I think is a bit silly, because you're developing them still fully, right? Like tomorrow you might have access to 3 more, you might have a bunch of level 1s become level 2. Basically, like, so the general progression is that, like, Noble Fire is like good when you're in a full party. When you're soloing, it usually goes out of your top 12. Focus Spirit is typically good. You make sure that you need the crit, and then it can be good. If you don't need the crit, you take it out when you're mobbing. If you need the crit, you keep it in. For bossing, of course, it's more value because it's got the crit and the boss damage, so it comes in really really useful there. When it comes to bossing, and then I'll refer to the grid again. When it comes to bossing, like the solid ones, so Beast Tamer is like high up there. Kana and Demon Avenger always gonna be in your Legion helping out, so it's not really a link skill. But when it comes to link skills, like the Lumi and the Demon Slayer are very big. The Demon Slayer for the boss damage, IED from the Lumi, right? You got those already at level 1, but like getting up to level 2, and then the Explorer mages are actually really, really good. And there's a few that are just going to lose value as you go on. So If you still need the ID, the Rin's Blessing and the Bravado from Zero and from Ho Young are going to stay very good, but after a while they're not going to be as useful anymore because they just give 10% IED, right? Which comparatively to other ones is just not going to match up. You're going to want bigger chunks of IED, either as potential in your weapon secondary or emblem, or you're going to work, you know, once you get to like closer to 230, 240, you're going to get closer hopefully to completing the Helix set, and then you get 30% IED from that. Or your Legion is going to grow even bigger, and then the Legion block can go up to 40%. So those kind of things will just overshadow the value of the link skills that just give 10%, and you'll be able to replace those with full damage links instead. That being said, I'm usually not a huge fan of the conditional damage skills, so like the Thief's Cunning and the Time to Prepare. There's definitely some classes where they like limp in at spots 11 or 12, and like in the beginning you can use them if you have nothing else, but usually they're like anywhere from like rank 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, you know, if you would put all the skills in usefulness, so they barely make it or they barely don't make it, depending on how much crit and IED you need typically. If you're that far into the game and like when it comes to IED, you're struggling a bit more on IED, I would always throw in a Bravado or a Rin's Blessing instead of a Thief's Cunning and Time to Prepare, just to make sure that you always commit your damage and that you can penetrate that armor of the boss. Just that little bit extra, I think, is all the time, I think is going to be more rewarding than having the Thief's Cunning or the Time to Prepare sometimes trigger. Yeah, unless you're just, you know, totally over on IED, then it doesn't make any sense, and then it's like, well, a little bit of extra damage, all the little bits can help out, you know. And the Archer Adventurer, you know, you want to replace that one as soon as possible because it's only 2% crit and like a chance to add monsters to the collection. Of course, when you're mobbing, that can be useful if you're still building your monster collection, but when you're bossing, it doesn't make the cut at all, right? Just 2%, going up to 10% if you fill it up completely with 3 level 2 links. That's just not enough because like the Beast Timber by itself at level 3 is 10%, and it's got HP and MP, and it's got boss damage in it in the same slot. That's just, it's just a lower value slot as a result. And then the Keen Edge is something that tends to get outscaled as well.
Yeah.
At this stage, usually use something like the Xenon, right? Like those stats. You don't want to have the Demon Avenger in there. That's usually a very solid one. Just percentage damage. You've got the Elementalism in there. You got the Solus in there, right? Those like the flat damage ones. And then when you're mobbing, you go more into the EXP ones. And then when you're bossing, you go IED is basically like the crit rate to the boss damage that is the crit damage, right? If you don't have the crit rate, the damage doesn't apply. If you don't have the IED, the boss damage doesn't apply, basically, right? So you want to make sure that the IED when you're bossing, you know, once the bosses become more important and everything, is roughly in line with what the progression grid is talking about with IED. Are you familiar with how IED works and how it's calculated? So you basically, every line is calculated individually, and you get the percentage of the line. That's how much you get of how much you're still missing to reach 100%. That's how you want to look at it. So if you're at 80%, you add a line of 10%. You get 10% of the missing 20%, which is 2%, so you go from 80 to 82. That's how it works. And then the boss, does that part make sense?
No, that didn't make sense.
Okay, so it's not like if you have 80% and you add 10%, you go to 90. That's not how it works. That would be too simple and it would be really easy to max out. So it's a multiplicative system, where if you have, the more you already have, the less efficient the extra IED that you get is. So getting from 80 to 85 is pretty simple, right? But getting from 85 to 90 is considerably harder, and getting from 90 to 95 is way harder, and getting from 95 to 100 is pretty much impossible, because, you know, if you're already at 95 and you add a line of 30%, you get 30% of the missing 5%, right? From 95 to 100. But 30% of 5% is it 1.5? So then you go to 96.5. And then another 30% of 3.5, that's just 1%. So now you're at 97.5. And now 30% of that, right? It gets smaller and smaller. It's like you have two people standing far away, and an IED line is basically taking that distance of how far you're still away, getting that distance closer. So you can imagine if you always take 10% off, you never really reach the person, right? There's always going to be some distance between you, because you're always taking a percentage of the distance between you. So that's basically, the boss is basically on one side and you're on the other side. And with every line of IED you get, you try to get closer to the boss to be able to confirm your damage. And the more armor the boss has, the further they're away, but also the more efficient your steps are towards them. Does that make sense? Kind of the visual?
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense.
Because you're taking 30% of a bigger chunk, right? So even though they start with more armor and you need more, every single line that you have is going to take off more of their armor. So the bosses in the beginning have like 50% armor. That's the PDR you've probably heard for, right? Stands for percentage damage or physical damage reduction, sorry. So that's like 50%, 100% on like CRA 3 doors, but that goes up to 200%, 300% is where a lot of the late game and end game bosses are at. And then Saren has like 390 or some shit, so it can get pretty high. And that based on, you know, what is the access to IED that you have, how much do the bosses need to deal decent damage to them, and going for IED, how much other damage does that go at the expense of, and is that comparative advantage worth going for the IED? Based on that, you try to aim for this number of IED percentage functionally. So this is not what you see in your stat window. That's what I call the visual IED. The game cannot calculate for if you're going to debuff a boss or if you're going to buff a specific skill. The game shows you the number that you send your attacks with, but it doesn't show you how much you're going to actually hit for. So depending on your party composition, you know, if a team member can debuff a boss, or if you have a certain passive hyper skill, or your boost nodes reach level 20, right, that'll also empower some skills. Although for bossing, for you to, for the melee and the Tempest, that will work. That will make you always hit a little bit harder and get a little bit more IED than what your stat window shows. For some classes, that's a lot, and they can actually go pretty low in the IED. And for some classes, it's almost nothing, and you know your visual is very close to your functional, so you actually want to get pretty close to that.
Okay.
For this again, I have exclamation mark IED, so I have like a video where I explain it to more depths, give like a math example, you know, if you feel like you need to see that just a little bit more to get it perfectly explained. And then there's also a calculation sheet where you can just put in all the sources that you have. I think that's usually a good way to make sure that you have all of those sources in your head. And then there's also a list with the sources, so you can open up the sources and basically go down the list. And then you can put all the percentage into the calculator, and the calculator will do those maths for you, where it basically takes X percentage of missing, right? And it just makes the number go higher. And then you can see if you can get to the number that your stat window shows, that means you haven't missed anything and you're like on top of it. And then you can say, okay, well, what if I want to work on my weapon secondary and emblem, right? I want to work on the potential. What if I got a line of 30% IED? Would that be bad for me, or would that be good for me? Well, then you could just add a line of 30% and see where that IED gets you. If that number gets you like way beyond what this grid says, right? Then you could be like, okay, I don't need that, right? But if it gets you pretty close to what it is, maybe a little bit over, then you can see, okay, maybe I have something else right now that gives me IED that I could replace for more damage. Maybe the link skills, right? I can get a line of 30%, big chunk. I can lose a line of 10%, still be where I want to be, and then I can remove that link skill from 10%, replace it with something with more damage, like the Demon Avenger, like the Demon Slayer, like those link skills, and then augment my damage significantly that way. So you can puzzle around with it a little bit and see, you know, if a line is worth for you or if it's not worth for you at all. What was your IED right now?
Right now it shows... Well, right now I don't have any link skills attached, and it says 60%.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's and it also shows you a list of sources so that you can kind of get an idea on where to look for it. Like, for example, the familiars with IED early on is basically the only real value for familiars early on, and it is one of the best values when it comes to getting sources of IED. That are you familiar with the concept of an opportunity cost?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like the opportunity cost for potential and the familiars is extremely low, because there's nothing else much there to get. But for all the other sources that you can get IED is comparatively very high. Like if you're doing it on your weapon secondary or emblem, sure, you can get a big line, but if it goes at the expense of a percentage attack line, that's going to be huge even for boss damage. And then also for mobbing, the IED does nothing, because regular mobs don't have armor like that. So you're basically making the piece only work for you when you're bossing. So if possible, you want to exclude that. You don't want to have to make like multiple pieces, because then you spread yourself too thin in your financial investment. So you want to get like a healthy balance between percentage attack and then maybe some percentage boss, maybe some IED, but mainly attack in the beginning just to get your flat damage up. And then once you do the harder bosses, then the ID becomes important. And then when you have all of that figured out, then you can add boss on top of that to, you know, add insult to injury to the boss then, in this case.
Okay.
Yeah, so we dripped a little bit into the equips, but we'll get more into that, of course, as we get to that part. But for link skills and Legion, you feel like you feel confident there?
Okay.
Yeah, no more questions? Okay, good. So I guess specifically we can get into the equips now, right?
Mm-hmm.
What? Because I have the dailies command. That's typically what I use as my go-to when people are like, "Well, what kind of content do I do? Where do I get equips and everything?" I don't have like a specific equip progression video. I don't like limiting people's option too much. Basically, these are the options. You know, here are the bosses you can kill. They drop all the important stuff. If you do this, you don't miss out on anything super important. The only thing that this grid doesn't include is special events, right? But that's a little hard to put into a grid like this. But if there are special event rings, for example, those are really, really strong early game, mid game, and even into the late game, they can become drop in Meso Gear later. Those are invaluable because they basically come with the stats as if you Star Forced it all the way up to 17 stars, but they come with that, so you don't have to spend all that extra money. You can just immediately work on the potential, and then once it's okay potential, it's just done, right? So that's really good value that early in the game.
Okay.
All the other pieces are a little bit more complicated, so you usually want to look at is this piece going to stay with me for a long time? So a few of the equips that answer that immediately is going to be your emblem. That is going to stay with you until you're killing Seren and you get that drop, right? So this is like until you're level 280 probably. You're not replacing this. So an emblem, and emblem is also one of the equips that gives you percentage attack possibly and percentage IED possibly. So the opportunity cost here for gain for your account is low, right? The expected return is insanely high, and on top of that, it's going to stay with you forever. So this is like the no-brainer go-to priority item to upgrade on. If you have like epic potential scroll, unique potential scroll, high-level cubes, you go for this one. The second one is the secondary. It depends from class to class. Some characters will switch it a little bit more often, like Akana. Most other characters just have one at level 100, and then it depends if they go for the Princess No secondary. I believe for Phantom, the differences in stats is not crazy, but I have ! Secondaries that should show all of the Princess No secondaries and all of their stats. So that you can kind of see how much better it is and if it's worth getting, right? Because if it's like, oh, 3 more luck and 3 more dex, that's not enough of a deterrent to say, like, I'm going to hold off and let all of that potential damage go to waste because I can get, like, 3 more dex, right? Where is the Phantom? Because I believe Phantom is one of those where you don't get a whole lot of bonus stats. Oh, here. Because a lot of them have, like, extra attack on it, and then, you know, it's a bit more important. Yeah, it's 14 dex and 14 luck. That's technically best in slot, but that's very, very close to these. I mean, I would say it's pretty much the same. Yeah, it's 6 more dex and 6 more luck. So if you're trying to super min-max, you can hold off. But I think early on, you're sitting on like a little bit of a gold mine on stats. Again, secondaries can get percentage attack, and they can get percentage damage, and they can get percentage boss damage as well. So I think that's also one that you want to invest in pretty heavily early on. Definitely get to Epic really quickly, maybe even get to Unique, and then roll with Master Craftsman cubes to get at least one really, really good line. You want that top line to be like a 9% attack, or, you know, if you roll shitty top line, but you roll a 6% attack and a 6% luck, or maybe a 20% boss or something in, well, you don't have 20% boss anymore, 30% boss in Unique. Or, you know, 2 useful lines or 2 lines of 6%, you know, something like that. The higher potential rank you go, the more picky you get with what you get, because you've invested all that money in tiering it up, right? So you want to get a bit more bang for your buck. but make sure that you don't tier up too quickly, because then you have to buy typically more expensive cubes to reroll, and then your money can, you know, drain really, really quickly. And a lot of times the variance of the rolls actually goes up as well as you go to higher ranks, so comparatively it'll become more expensive to roll. So don't feel bad to like sit on an epic. Like if you roll a frozen card epic and it's got like 6% attack, 15 IED, and 3% luck, I'll keep that for quite a while. That's really, really good. That's like at the quality of unique. Why would you spend money getting it up to unique and spend money on cubes just to probably settle for something that's about the same, right? That money is better spent somewhere else. So again, if you have a specific question on a specific equip like this, then you can always ask, you know, in the chat and be like, yo, I rolled this, do I tier it up? But you'll get, as you go, you'll get more of a feeling for it. But if you're planning on going past epic, usually the first pieces you look for is the weapon, the secondary, and the emblem. So, of course, you have the secondary and the emblem. Secondary you don't have to worry about. The emblem stays with you. The weapon is a little bit more tricky because it's a temporary one. So we usually don't go too hard on that one. You've probably come across occult cubes already. I would definitely use some occult cubes to see if you can roll a 6% attack line on the weapon. That's going to help a lot more than 6% luck because of, you know, how damage calculations work. There's fewer access to percentage attack, right? It's these three is the only potential where you can get access to percentage attack. So you want to get as much percentage attack out of these. All the other pieces will be able to get % luck. So that's where you go for the luck basically as the best line. So I would get some occults on it. And possibly, because you have until April, right? You're going to be using this for quite a while. I'd probably try to, if you get red flames, powerful flames, I'd probably use those on a weapon as well and see if you can get some nice nice weapon attack flame out of that, attack power. That'll be, again, all the other stats, you know, you go for luck, percentage, all stat, and the attack power there is going to be very low, but the attack power scales pretty well, and you can get a lot of it on the weapon, so that's going to be priority there.
Okay.
And if you need more explanation on flames, I got a flame video as well where I go for like how can you tell if any flame on any item is worth it, if you need to upgrade it or if you can stick with it. And that's basically going to take back to the progression grid and look at the flame scores here to see like how do you even know what a flame score is, why do different items have different types of flame score, what does it even mean, what is a flame score, why is it important, and basically give you like how do you get to these numbers so that you can tell whether you're, you know, in the ballpark of where you need to be and you can move on to the next item, or if you need to work on your flame. And again, the important part is there, how long are you going to hold on to this item, right? Is it a temporary item? You're not going to hold on to it for very long, but it has a really good potential to upgrade. Maybe upgrade it a little bit, right? And just be a little bit on the lower end. But it's going to still, it all comes down to like where's the biggest bang for your buck. But flames mostly in the beginning, it's just like you find them from an event. That'll give you the advice on where to use them. Don't really buy any flames, I would say, until you're going into, say, like an Absolab weapon or something. Then you can start like buying flames because you start having like a decent high standard of what you're trying to aim for. But before that, flames are just nice little tools of upgrading your equipment a little bit along as you go, but it doesn't become a primary expense for you. The primary expenses are going to be star forcing, at least everything up to 12, and then working on the potentials. And then you basically work on the potentials until you start like getting at least unique, but maybe even legendary weapon, secondary, and emblem. Again, weapon maybe a little bit later, right? Depending on when you get your permanent weapon.
Yeah.
And then once those are set, your boost nodes are coming in, your arcane power, that's where you want to get all your damage. WSE, Nodestone, UV matrix, right? And boost, and your arcane power, that's where you want to get all your base damage. And everything else is just going to be epic. Probably use occult cubes to just roll 6% stat on everything. If it's epic, if it's rare, roll for 3%. All of those little bits are going to add up. So if you get occult cubes, you can definitely re-roll your current CRA gear, right?
Okay.
It's unfortunate you don't get to keep that hat flame. That one's pretty good, right? 40 luck and 5% all stat. If you throw that through the calculator and look at the numbers, you'll probably see that that's really nice. Comparatively, the pants are pretty good too. On 60 luck, that's definitely something I would keep as well. The top is at 24, so that one could use some improvement. But definitely, if you have any flames, throw it on a weapon first.
Okay, for sure.
Yeah. Other than that, you just look at the pieces in terms of what is going to be kept and what can I replace. To get a good look on that, I will advise you to look at the transfer hammer video. That goes into transfer. I missed an S. Into transfer hammering and transposing. It just completely explains the systems, like what are the limitations, and what can it do for you. And if you understand that system and what it can do for you, you will save a lot of money throughout your Maple game. And it'll also help you understand when you need to push on an item and when you just need to hold and work on something else instead, and then come back to it and push on the item. Because it'll help you skip certain steps where it becomes really important, because items can be rare, for example. And then the transfer hammer, once you understand that completely, it'll help you skip taking very high risk upgrades and instead go for lower risk upgrades, and then just transfer hammer the value that you spent over. And it'll also give you a good idea of which pieces can I push on and can I upgrade, in the sense of how long am I going to keep it, right? And which pieces will just get completely forgotten. You can't transfer anything over, and all of your upgrade is going to get lost. Because we don't have trade, this is an important thing to understand. Mm-hmm. If you look through the video and you need like more specific explanation, just hit me up on Discord. You know, I can explain more, because we're like pretty much at the end of our hour and a half here. But yeah, so if specifically you need it but if you have like one or two follow-up questions, you know, you can just ask in the chat. But if you have specific, or you just, you know, it's still too confusing because it's a lot, and the video is quite long as a result. But I go over an example as well, and I also go over like in mid-game, early game, late game, what do you really use this for, and how do you want to prepare to be able to use it when you get to that point, basically. Give advice specifically to that as well. So hopefully that'll clear that up. But that'll give you, because right now it's all a little ethereal, right? Like how much Star Force do I go for? How much potential do I go for? Kind of like that. The progression grid gives you a general guideline on like what numbers you want to aim for. But once you understand with Transfer Hammer, you'll see like, oh, I can get this item to Epic and I can reroll these stats because I'm going to Transfer Hammer it over anyway, so all of that value is going to transfer. So there's no loss in this moment. And then for other equips, you'll be like, oh, I can't transfer anything. There's no pieces to transfer because I know how Transfer Hammer works. So any upgrade that I make on this item is going to get stuck on this item forever. And if I'm not going to keep it for very long, or if you check the dailies, the next piece is actually coming in like 5 levels and I'm going to be there soon. It doesn't make sense to upgrade this item right now because that cash is just going to get lost. So that's why typically early on you push on the WSE, you keep it for long, very low opportunity cost. And then the second thing is typically the accessories, because you're sitting on like rare and epic items anyway, so you make the jump from epic to legendary. That way you don't lose any damage, because you usually get like 6% or 9% line of stat with that as you upgrade to the drop gear and the meso set. But you gain the utility of the drop and the meso, and that's going to help you get way more gains from the time that you spend training. And then all that money that you saved up, then you can spend that on getting all the other items to legendary, or pushing the Star Force if there's a Star Force event. And then, you know, when all of that gets done, then you can start worrying about flames, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a lot, right? But the commands that I have, the videos that I have, will definitely help you, guide you there. Yeah, I can't really go over those at this point because some of those are a little bit longer than than even the whole session and stuff. That's I'm forgetting. Thinking if there's, yeah, so if you get to the point with drop and meso, that's still like mid to long term for you at this point. So ideally the meso obtain caps at 100% from equips. So you look for 5 lines of that, and you can equip 9 accessories that can get those lines. So it's the rings, the pendants, the eye in the face accessory, and then the earrings. Those 9 pieces can get these lines. So you typically go for 5 with meso, there's 4 left, and then you go 4 with drop. That'll give you enough drop rate to always get a bag from every monster you kill. It'll maximize the money in the bag with the meso obtain, and it'll also give you access to more nodes and that kind of stuff. So for details on that, I have the drop rate command under !drop rate, and that talks about like what is meso drop rate, what is item drop rate, what is meso obtain, what are the caps, where do you get them from, what is a reasonable goal to aim for, etc. That'll all be in that command.
Yeah, it's really easy.
Yep. I guess we didn't go over familiars in depth, but just know for now, just take all of your familiars from all of your mules, put them all in your phantom, and just open them there, and look for IED. That's essentially all you do right now. If they're not IED,
been, like,
just
grabbing
extract
the
them.
cards and just like not using them at all, just sitting in my inventory.
Yeah, just double click them, and then you can then you have to like reveal their potential basically.
Okay.
So double click, you go to collection, and then you select the card, and then it'll have a little question mark here. You click, you pay the fee, and it's like revealing the potential on an item essentially. But we don't have cubes for these, so it's definitely power in numbers.
Okay.
And then, yeah, later in the game, you'll be able to make extra. You'll be able to rank them up to get into the higher tiers, but that's all explained in a familiar command as well. That's typically not something you start doing until like level 240 or 245. So until then, you're just like revealing. A little bit of drop rate maybe could be nice, but it's mainly the IEDs that you're looking for, just because of the extremely high value on getting IED there. Okay, I guess we went through most of the things. We already went a little bit over time, already a little bit late for my for my boss. But it's my fault. We started a little bit late. I'm thinking if there's anything here in the progression. Yeah. Yeah, so we went over level. Like, main stat is basically an amalgamation of, you know, a little bit of everything together. So that's like a general goal, and you see like there's really big jumps here, right? Because it's a combination of getting all the other stuff to work together and to work up. Legion, you're well on track. Your Star Force is probably going to be a little bit low early on, except if you're trying to fill every single slot, then you're probably going to be fine on Star Force. Mainly Star Forcing, you look for the events. If you want to go up to, if you want to jump from 11 or 12 to 15, you wait for a 30% off event. If you have backups, you know, then you don't safeguard. If you don't have backups and you don't want to lose your item, you safeguard. Costs you extra money, but it saves you time. And then Transfer Hammer will also come into there. Sometimes you go for a lower level item, risk the boom, but easier to replace. And then once you get to the Star Force you want, you transfer over to the other item. That way you don't have to risk your target item, but you can risk your lower level items and save a lot of money that way. If you ever want to go past 15, you look for a 5, 10, 15, 100% event. That just saves you enormous amounts of time. And if you look at the events and there's no upcoming Star Force events, that means you can probably spend a little bit more of your money on cubing until that comes.
Okay, for sure.
Basically how it works. All of the flames will be explained by the flame video, and boost nodes and arcane power I think makes sense, right? You do as many of the arcane symbol dailies as you can, level up your symbols, and the boost nodes, you slowly level them up over time. You're going to be taking a bit more focus into the skill nodes, but yeah, you just don't really start crafting. Once you get more slots to start thinking about the skill nodes, about the boost nodes, look at the V-Matrix command, look at what kind of combinations you're looking for, and then you start mix and matching the right nodes together. And once you find the right nodes, then you can start leveling them up by combining them. But you can talk to the node master, and there's a bunch of explanation there on how to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty broad. A lot of stuff that you might feel like as soon as you start with it, you might have additional questions. My chat is very helpful. I'm live pretty much here every day, right? Many ways to reach me, so if you need anything, reach out. But yeah, a lot of the commands have a lot of the info already, so usually that'll get you 90% of the way, and then the last 10%, one of us can get you there.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, man.
Yep. Well, best of luck. Like I said, if anything pops up because of the videos and it's more in-depth, just hit me up on Discord as like a little after-sales service, I guess. And otherwise, I'll just see you in chat if you have any questions.
All right. Yeah. Good luck on your bossing.
Yes. Thank you very much. Best of luck, and I'll see you around.
All right.
Okay. Bye-bye. All right, cool. Well, thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully it was helpful for you if you're pretty new and just, trying to soak it all in with the big events. A lot of going on in this game, so make sure you check the event calendar. That one should always be up to date, or, as much as humanly possible. And check out all the commands on the Twitch chat right there. You can use them, ! And then whatever you need information for. ! Commands give you the full list of all the commands that are available. We have almost 200 of them. So use them, and if you have follow-up questions, I stream live every day on Twitch, and there's a bunch of helpful people in the chat that will help you out as well. Oh, 190, well, a little bit lower, 185. but we make new all the time. So yeah, hopefully it was educational for you. If you want one of these sessions, make sure you check the description on how you can request one of these. And if you want to put your name in the hat for winning one for free, or one of the 2 free I give away every month, make sure you leave a comment saying that you would like to win, and you might be lucky and get one of these sessions with me. Well, or lucky if you value it. And then we can kind of sort out your situation, kind of look at where you're at, what you want to reach, and hopefully help you maintain the fun while not missing out on any great gains that you could be having. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.